Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of RSI's Symposium on International Law and Islamic Law. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Rahmawati binti Mohd Yusoff, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Law, University Technology Mara in Malaysia. She completed her LLB, her two master's degrees in Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Heritage, and her PhD in law from the International Islamic University in Malaysia. Her areas of research interest include Islamic law, family law, property law, commercial law, and cyber law. Thank you for being here, Dr. Rahmawati. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So before we begin, if I could just ask you what prompted you, what inspired you to take up research in this particular field? We know that this is a complex area of both international law and Islamic law. So what inspired you particularly to take up research in how international law and Islamic law intersect, particularly with regards to family law?
Firstly, this is because Malaysia is a multicultural and multi-religious nation, and in Federal Constitution of Malaysia, it has recognized Islam as the official religion of the Federation. However, Malaysia also ratified a CEDAW, which has objection from a lot of country because Malaysia has its several reservation. That is how I interested with this topic that I will present today, inshallah.
Okay, that's fantastic. So like I mentioned, the theme of this particular conversation in this particular episode of the symposium is how international law and Islamic law intersect with regards to gender equality and also family law. So for those viewers, particularly who may not be familiar, could you please explain the main sources of law on gender equality and family law in both international law and also Islamic law?
Okay, for the introduction, the sources of law on gender equality and family law vary from international law and Islamic law. For international law, we have international convention and treaties, also customary international law, and also general human rights instrument. Firstly, for international convention and treaties, we have CEDAW, which is Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which adopted by the United Nations in 1979, which is a key instrument promoting women's rights globally. For general human rights instrument, we have UDHR, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the United Nations General Assembly has proclaimed in Paris on 10 December 1948, which can be the foundation of international human rights law and as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. This declaration has contained the provision relevant to gender equality and family rights. And we also have a Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which is a resolution adopted by United Nations, which promulgate the principle concerning the equality of men and women. And this declaration convinced that women's rights are human rights. We also have 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which adopt on 25 December 2015, has a set of 70 goals and 169 targets, which provide a framework for advanced sustainable development in 3 dimensions, which are economic, social, and environmental. Thirdly, we have customary international law, which are principles related to gender equality and family law may be derived and developed through the general practice of each state. For Islamic law, we have Quran, which considered as the primary sources of Islamic law and contain general principles that are relevant to family law and issues that are related to gender equality. We also have Hadith, which refer to saying and action of Prophet Muhammad, which are considered as secondary sources of Islamic law, and guide on various matters, including a family issue. We also have ijma, which refer to consensus of Islamic scholars on a particular legal issue. We have a qiyas, which is making legal decision by analogy, and Islamic jurists use this method to apply existing legal principle to new situation, including those related to family law, and also other sources of Islamic law, such as istisan, masalih mursalah, and so on.
Okay, great. So we know that when we specifically talk about international law and Islamic law, particularly as it pertains to gender equality and family law, there's a whole range of sources of law which can also make, trying to balance interests between states and those legal obligations quite complex. So, as you've spoken, as you mentioned in your introduction, many states have ratified CEDAW, so the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. But in doing so, they've lodged certain reservations to certain provisions of the treaty. And you recently presented a paper on this, and you analyzed how Malaysia's reservations to CEDAW pan out, specifically in its domestic legal jurisdiction. So, could you please explain what those reservations are, and particularly how you've seen those reservations then influence domestic law in Malaysia?
Okay. For the introduction, Malaysia has signed and ratified CEDAW in 1995, which we know that CEDAW serves as a women right instrument, including civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. However, even though Malaysia has ratified CEDAW in 1995, it has reservation to Article 2F, Article 5A, Article 9, and Article 16. However, in February 1998, Malaysia once again withdrew its reservation concerning Article 2F, Article 9.1, Article 16.1b, Article 16.1d, Article 16.1e, and also Article 16.1h. Subsequently, in 2010, Malaysia further withdrew reservation to Article 5A, Article 7b, and also Article 16.2, and maintain its reservation to Article 9.2, Article 16.1a, 16.1c, 16.1f, and also 16.1g, because it has conflict with Sharia law and Federal Constitution of Malaysia. What's important here is Article 16, which provide that state parties shall take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women in all matters relating to marriage and family relation, and in particular shall ensure, on a basis of equality of men and women, A, the same right to enter into marriage, C, the same right and responsibility during marriage and its dissolution, F, the same rights and responsibility with regards to guardianship, worship, trusteeship, and also adoption of children, or similar institution where this concept exists in national legislation. In all cases, the interest of the children shall be paramount. And also G, the same personal right as husband and wife, including the right to choose a family name, a profession, and also an occupation. Okay.
Okay. So just with regards to some of these, if you can explain how these may conflict with the Sharia. So you mentioned, for example, to enter into a marriage. That is one thing that Malaysia has a reservation against, especially also the dissolution. You also mentioned, for example, the same rights within the marriage. So could you explain why Malaysia has had to, lodge a reservation against these, and specifically how it may conflict with Islamic law? So if you could just give like a brief explanation on that.
Okay. The issue of Malaysia CEDAW reservation and the debate over the gender equality in Islamic family law has been a contentious issue that has attracted the attention of scholars, policymakers, and also human rights advocates. Several European countries such as Germany, Sweden, and Netherlands also protest on Malaysia CEDAW reservation at United Nations Human Rights Council. They argue that Malaysia reservation has undermined the principle of gender equality and human rights. Apart from that, CEDAW committee also has reviewed that Malaysia reports on its implementation of CEDAW and has urged Malaysia to lift all the reservation that limit the rights of women. The committee also recommend that Malaysia to adopt gender equality to fully domesticate convention and its definition of discrimination. And also, United Nations has noted that Muslim women in Malaysia has faced multiple discrimination in some areas of life on the combined grounds of gender and religion due to Sharia law. In fact, Malaysia government has faced pressure to address concern about gender justice and equality in Islamic family law from both domestic and international stakeholders. While some argue that reservation is necessary to uphold Malaysia cultural and religious tradition, others also argue that it violates the principle of gender equality and human rights. However, it must be noted that by virtue of Article 4 of Federal Constitution of Malaysia, the article has provided that the Constitution, which is Federal Constitution of Malaysia, is the supreme legal authority of Malaysia. By virtue of Article 3 of Federal Constitution, Islam is the official religion of Malaysia and a vital component of Malay identity and culture. Okay, so Malaysia has followed a system of government with separate powers by the federal government and also state government. Based on Malaysia Federal Constitution also, Muslim personal law falls under jurisdiction of state authorities, resulting that we have 14 states in Malaysia having its own distinct of Islamic family law. This law may vary slightly only in their provision and application. Although despite these differences, this state law adhere to the fundamental principle of Sharia from Quran, Sunnah, and also Muslim jurists. Apart from that, according to dualist theory, international law and treaties only govern the interaction between states, while national law pertains to the right and obligation of individual within a state. Malaysia is a dualist state, and following this principle, meaning that international treaties such as CEDAW do not directly regulate personal matters within Malaysia government. And then there is also contention that Malaysia government maintains a reservation on Article 16 of CEDAW due to the belief that it conflicts with religious law governing family relationship within Muslim community. This reservation suggests that full compliance with CEDAW would necessitate significant reform to the current family law system. However, Malaysia government emphasize that adherence to CEDAW is subject to the condition that the provision are consistent with principle of Islamic Sharia law practiced in Malaysia and also provision in the Federal Constitution. Therefore, the reservation which are placed by Malaysia on Article 16 of CEDAW allows Islamic family law to continue governing family matters for Muslim. The reservation is necessary to uphold de facto equality between women and men in Malaysia's cultural and religious context. This reservation is necessary also to ensure that Islamic family law continues to govern family matter for Muslim in Malaysia, which is an important element of their religious and cultural identity. This reservation actually in line with the object and purpose of CEDAW through substantive equality. The reservation allows Malaysia to maintain its commitment to CEDAW while also respecting Malaysia cultural and religious tradition. Advocate for preserving Islamic family law argue that it is deeply rooted in Malaysia religious tradition and should be respected within the framework of cultural sensitivity. They assert that achieving gender justice require striking a balance between religious principle and also women's right. Therefore, any change to Islamic family law must take into account Malaysia culture and religious context also. Apart from that, some argue that Malaysia reservation to Article 16 of CEDAW is a matter of national sovereignty and autonomy. This reservation is consistent with the principle of state sovereignty, which allow the country to determine their own law and policy which are related to family matters without any external interference. Supporter of this reservation argue that Islamic family law promotes and protects family value and stability. They believe that the provision in Islamic family law such as the ability for men and women to divorce unilaterally are designed to maintain the integrity of the family unit and ensure the well-being of the children. Some also argue that the provision in Islamic law which may be considered discrimination towards women are justified by the belief in traditional gender roles. They believe that men and women have different roles and responsibility within the family, and Islamic family law reflects and upholds this role. Critics of CEDAW argue that this convention only has limited effectiveness in promoting gender equality worldwide. They point to the fact that the other countries such as China and Saudi Arabia reportedly poor women rights report even though they ratify CEDAW. Supporters of Malaysia reservation contend that the convention may not be the most effective mechanism for achieve gender equality and that Malaysia reservation does not undermine at all the overall goals of CEDAW. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a very detailed answer. It highlights several different points. You mentioned that although there's quite a lot of criticism of states like Malaysia and even Pakistan, we're also a Muslim country. We've also recognized Islam as a state religion, and we've also lodged certain reservations to CEDAW. Many Muslim states have lodged reservations to CEDAW, and a lot of these reservations, when we look at them, they say that we will enforce this provision insofar as it adheres to the Islamic Sharia, or insofar as our law or our domestic legal framework complies with the Islamic Sharia. And like you mentioned, we have a lot of critics of those reservations who say that this can be used as an excuse to not fully enforce CEDAW and to actually implement laws that are designed to on the face value that are designed to promote gender equality, but actually when you enforce them in practice, it creates conditions of inequality and creates conditions of discrimination. But like you mentioned, I think what we need to recognize is that the fundamental concept of gender equality, or even, I mean, I would argue that in Islamic law, it's gender equity, because you recognize that maybe perhaps you don't seek to achieve the same, for example, result of equality, or you don't seek to achieve the same level of equality in the law, but you strive to create what you call substantive equality or de facto equality, in which women's rights are protected within the framework of the Sharia, but also it should not be used as a means to promote conditions of discrimination against them, and which is why then I think balancing the two is very important in modern times. But do you think, personally speaking, having studied all of this and also having studied different matters pertaining to, for example, Islamic land law, you've also studied the notion of domestic violence and how that falls within the framework of the Malaysian legal system. Do you then think that, given all of this, given the reservations and given this pattern of, I mean, not just of Malaysia but of different Islamic states, do you think it's possible to then reconcile or to balance these competing notions of gender equality? Because we see in international law, at least under the CEDAW, that there is one notion of gender equality, and that one can argue is, the Western secular idea of gender equality, that at the end of the day, the result has to be the same. But in Islamic law, you have a different notion of gender equality, in which, again, you value the equal dignity of both men and women, but man and woman, but at the end of the day, how it materializes in Islamic law will be different to how it materializes in international law. How would you respond to that?
Yes. In my opinion, absolutely it is possible to reconcile combination of gender equality in international law and Islamic law. Okay, we see by the reservation of Article 16 of CEDAW by Malaysia, there are also some example of Islamic family law provision that are considered discrimination towards women. Okay, firstly, divorce. Under Islamic law, men can divorce their wife unilaterally by pronounced talaq, while women must go through a more complicated process to obtain a divorce provided in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 229 until 230. However, a misunderstanding has emerged, leading to the mistakenly belief that Islam exclusively grants the authority only to men to initiate divorce. On the contrary, women also have right to initiate divorce, known as khulu and also fasa. For the second one is, I give the example of polygamy. Islamic family law allows a woman to have up to 4 wives, while women are not allowed to have multiple husbands, provided in Surah An-Nisa verse 3. However, it must be noted that to engage in polygamy, there are certain conditions to men. For men, he must possess financial stability, sexual capability, psychological capacity to adequately fulfill the needs of all his wife. Furthermore, polygamous husband must refrain from display favoritism among his wife. Islam also allows for polygamous marriage, but it is important to emphasize that permissibility of polygamy is only limited to exceptional circumstances that are recognized and accepted by the law. Apart from that, fair treatment between wives also means in terms of accommodation, maintenance, and also other form of material treatment. Okay, the example number 3 I give here is inheritance. Okay, under Islamic family law, men are entitled to a larger share than a woman in inheritance provided in Surah An-Nisa verse 11. However, even though Allah has ordered the similarity between them in the legal origin of inheritance and differentiate the share between male and female, whereby male share is equal to 2 female shares, This is because men need to fulfill the responsibility of subsistence, needs, business, risk responsibility, which is appropriate if they are given twice as much as what is given to women. And the fourth example here is wife obedient, which has provided by the Islamic Family Law Act in Malaysia, which require wife to obey their husband. However, Allah has command husband to treat their wives with compassion, love, and also wife possess entertainment to receive gentle treatment, safeguard her privacy, uphold dignity, and also refrain from disclose her secret to others. Okay. Therefore, from this, for example, that I give here, the reservation placed by Malaysia of CEDAW allows Islamic family law to continue and governing family matters for Muslim. And actually, the reservation are in line with the object and purpose of CEDAW through substantive equality, and the reservation at the same time allow Malaysia to maintain its commitment to CEDAW while also respecting its cultural and also religious tradition of Malaysia. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think what you highlighted with all those different examples is that there is a particular wisdom behind these rulings of Islamic family law. And at the end of the day, what they try to achieve is they try to balance the rights and the responsibilities on both men and women within Islamic society, within a family unit. And I think that is what perhaps is misconstrued when we see criticisms of Islamic family law, is that these specific rulings, when they all work together, they actually serve to create a more equal or a more equitable social fabric, at least between the genders. And so, in protecting that and protecting the right to govern to govern a state's family law according to those principles, I think Malaysia has shown that the reservations lodged to specific portions are like I believe you mentioned that it's withdrawn some of its reservations as well, but it's kept reservations to some of these provisions. But at the end of the day, the wisdom behind that is that given our cultural fabric and our specific religious beliefs, this is a more appropriate way to achieve what CEDAW was actually created for, and in this way we're able to create a more equitable society when we talk about the relations between men and women. Just any final thoughts before we conclude? This has been a very insightful presentation. But if you have any last thoughts to say on the subject matter, or people who are people who may be interested in the field of studying international law, Islamic law, particularly with regards to gender equality and family law, what would you like to say?
Okay. The debate over Malaysia reservation of CEDAW is a complex and multi-faceted. However, Malaysia CEDAW reservation allows Islamic family law to govern family matter for Muslim in the country, which have give a right between men and women. And also, any effort to promote gender justice in Malaysia must take into account that Malaysia cultural and religious context and work towards achieving meaningful progress must respect Malaysia tradition and value.
And I think I can say the same for pretty much any Muslim state that has ratified CEDAW. I can speak on having studied Pakistan's or international human rights obligations. Even we've ratified the CEDAW, but we've added reservations. Several other Muslim states, from the Middle East specifically, they've ratified CEDAW, but they've also added reservations. And I think it's important that we use the Malaysian case study as an example as to how that can actually be beneficial to the enforcement of gender equality around the world and gender justice, like you say. Perhaps gender justice is a more appropriate word, and gender equity is a more appropriate word when we look at how Islamic family law tackles the subject. So I think this particular case study is very important, and it highlights how Islamic law is often misunderstood, especially from other states, and that international law can be a positive tool to allow states not only to show that they are serious about enforcing human rights, particularly when we talk about gender equality and rights within the family, but also that they are equally bound, if not more, subject to a greater responsibility to enforce Islamic law, particularly if they have Islam as a state religion. But then that these two, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. They're not necessarily competing with each other. Rather, they can be harmonized, and when we interpret them in a certain way, they can be used to actually promote greater gender justice than if we look at them individually. As you know, in silos, or if we misunderstand one when we look at it from a particular lens. Dr. Rahmawati, thank you so much for your time. This was a wonderful conversation, and I hope that this inspires a lot of people to take up this area of research and other similar areas of research. And thank you for participating in our symposium.
Yes, thank you to the organizer and also to the audience. Inshallah, until we meet again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.